Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2021 science fiction thriller Sensation, a film that is co-written and directed by Martin Groff, and it stars Eugene Simon, Emily Wyatt, Jennifer Martin, Mary Beth Havens and Alistair G. Cumming. Now this is a UK based film and it focuses on a character called Andrew, who is seemingly living a normal life, and he wants to learn more about his family's history. He knows very little about his family's past and his father, etc. So he subjects himself to some DNA testing. However, the company that he has this testing done with has a bit of a ulterior motive. And once his DNA results come back, he is then encouraged by this company and this doctor in particular to subject himself to further testing at a research facility. There he discovers other people similar to him who may well have some hidden abilities, and it's the job of the personnel at this research facility to try and help them unlock these abilities. Right, that's the basic premise of the film. What are my thoughts on Sensation? Well, this film has kind of all the potential in the world. Unfortunately, I think it fails to deliver on the most part of that promise, and some of that is it borrows too heavily from those that have come before it. I think there's elements in this film that reminded me of things like the Adjustment Bureau, Born Identity, X-Men, and The Matrix. They've borrowed and been influenced by those films in certain sections of this film. And the film doesn't really pull the trigger on any of the stuff that it shows you in regards to its potential. For example, early on in the film, you kind of learn that this organisation is maybe up to something sinister. You're not really sure what. They give you some examples of, him being followed by, and this is why it reminded me of the Adjustment Bureau. Remember the Adjustment Bureau? Again, the guys with the trilby hats on and things, following Matt Damon around. There was a bit of that going on, and then they kind of flash this light in his eyes and unlock these abilities in him, and he's able to batter somebody, who's far more skilled and trained than him. And that I'm thinking, this is starting to look cool now. And then we never see that again, and then they move on to other bits where he goes to this research facility, and the doctors there start showing him how to use his mental ability, and they start getting him in his head and adjust realities, and that's where the Matrix stuff comes from. And the research facility itself, it kind of reminded me of like the X-Mansion or the New Mutants film, where they're locked away and experimented on almost. It's like all these things, but it never really lays its hat on any of them. And because of that, what we get is a bit of a mix of a film that, by the end of it, leaves you deeply unsatisfied. Because the ending that you get, you're just kind of like, oh, is that it? Why did they... And I obviously can't spoil it, but my thoughts at the end was, well, why did they go through all that rigmarole just to do that at the end when they could have done it in the first scene? Or the first half an hour of the film, they could have got that over with. I didn't understand what the end game was really here. And I felt like I was paying attention. I mean, you get to about an hour in and there's a huge exposition dump that kind of by the end made you think, well, no, that was false information, if you like. It wasn't really an exposition dump. So it shows you one thing and gives you another, which I don't mind in films, generally speaking. But what it eventually gives you, I think, is deeply unsatisfying. And the promise that it shows you at the beginning of the film, like when they shine this light in his eyes and he like turns into like, Neo in the Matrix, you're kind of like, that's the film I want to see. I want that, please. And that's it. You don't get any more of that. And it's a real shame. I think if they'd have blended a little bit more of that in the film, it would have upped the interest. Because what we get is a poorly paced science fiction thriller here that's never really fully explains what they're doing in regards to the experimenting on the minds, what this potential is that they're unlocking. Really, you never really fully understand, okay, well, what is it you're doing and why are you doing it? And certainly by the end you kind of think, well, why did he waste all that time doing that? you didn't need to do any of it. It almost felt like they were being programmed like, what's that hypnotist called in the UK? Not the hypnotist, Darren Brown. When he does his specials, where he programs people's brains and things like that. It felt like something like that. They were being programmed, which potentially they were, but it just felt like they went round the houses to get where they needed to be, and it ultimately left you right at the end scratching your head as if to think, well, what have I just watched? I didn't really understand any of it because of the ending that you gave me. And it's a real shame there were bags and bags of potential here in this film. I thought the direction was absolutely fine. Some really impressive shots by the director. There's clearly some talent there. The performances by all the actors were on point here. No issue at all with any of the performances. They were all very, very good. The music score I thought was excellent. I mean, I like synth music, I like things like Orchestral Maneuvers in Dark, Depeche Mode, Ultravox, and I like synth music, and I loved the score here. I thought it was, certainly quite beautiful at times, actually. So this film, for me, had bags of potential. And I'm a patient film watcher. I'll stick with a film if I think, it's going to give me some kind of payoff. And unfortunately, it doesn't really, this film. It doesn't deliver on any of the promise and premise that it gives you early on in the film. I think it's definitely heavily influenced by some of those films that I mentioned previously. But I think it probably needed to lean a little bit more into some of them than others, if you like. It becomes a little bit of a mismatch by the end. But it's certainly interesting, a great premise, a lot of potential. It just failed to live up to that potential, unfortunately. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Science fiction fans, there's some interesting ideas here, and it's not a complete washout. For me, it just failed to deliver on quite a lot. So that's my review for Sensation. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, I will be back with more reviews on the channel very, very soon.